It's no good making a deal with the devil. He's a cheat. He's all they say he is, and more. The effete modern books like to present him as a smiling red devil, all clean and slick, or as some cagey, witty peddler, or a top hat and towels city slicker. But the monks of the Middle Ages knew better. They described him as a beast, a stinking, foul-breathed, corrupt, and totally loathsome abomination. Take my word for it, he is. I know, for I was a fool enough to make such a pact. I saw him and dealt with him, and from beginning to end, it was never worth it. It was desperate, and like all whom fate have played crooked, I was sore about it. Things were not going well with me, and it was all their fault. My wife and my daughters. I refused to take the blame in spite of what the devil may claim. I know when I'm right. My daughter had run away from my home. That was the shock that made me realize what was happening. The girl ran away, and she was only 16, and she'd stolen the contents of my wallet and took some of my wife's jewellery and ran away. My wife wasn't so shocked. She had the nerve to say it served me right, that I didn't understand the child. What's to understand about a disobedient daughter who doesn't listen to her father, and who makes dates after 8 o'clock at night, who sneaks magazines into her bedroom, actually talks to some of those uncouth common kids from across the tracks, and has been seen in soda parlours after dark? Sure, I had to beat her. I've been doing that since she was 7. I've had to be stricter and stricter with her. Spare the rod and spoil the child. That's the slogan I was raised on, and I did my best. But the girl was rotten. Something from her mother's side of the family, no doubt. And she had the nerve to try to run away. I called the police. I'm not going to be thought of as the father of a wild kid. I sent out an alarm. My wife objected, but I put her in her place. A slap across the face shut her up. I taught her long ago who was master. Me. The way it was meant to be. I locked her up in a bedroom, and later on I gave her a lesson with a strap, face down on the bed with her clothes off. Women know only one master. My mother never complained. She didn't dare. Not even when she was dying after my father threw her down the stairs that night. My father's ways were right, and I was right. The cops brought the girl back to me the next day. I gave her a hiding she'd not forget. And then I arranged to have her committed to a corrective institution. One of those private sanitariums for disturbed children. You know. Exclusive, well guarded, and well disciplined. Alright, they made life hell for her, but how else can you teach a wayward child how to do right? Better for the family name than to have her in public vision. They had my orders, and the extra payments I made were generous enough to enforce them. She'd not get out until she was good, if they had to nearly kill her to do it. They kept her in a straitjacket for months at a time at my insistence, and in restraining cuffs and belts at all other times. A series of regular electric shocks taught her a few things. The doctor says now she's faking insanity, that she shrieks night and day, and they keep her by herself in a padded, locked cell. But I think she's faking. She's just a disobedient girl, and she's got to learn who's master. As for my wife, she had the nerve to leave me. She climbed out of a window the night I bribed the doctor to start my bad daughter's shock treatment. She ran to my business partner, that skunk, and he helped her hide. The next day, he dared put it up to me. He said he thought I was the one who was cracking up. Me. The nerve of him. Obviously, he was scheming to steal my wife away from me, and he must have been double booking my firm. I was sure of it. I could see it from all his faking, sly ways. He must have been plotting my ruin the way he must have been scheming after my wife. I could see I'd get no help from the courts and the lawyers. They're all corrupt, unable to see how a man must be stern with his own. These are decadent times. No wonder the world is going to hell. I was in a jam. They cornered me, boxed me with legal chicaneries, tied up my funds. I was furious that night as I stalked up and down my house. The windows were shut and all shades down. I don't stand for curious eyes. I was alone, and the next day they'd be closing in from all directions. That's when I turned to Satan. I figured if Satan had been maligned as much as I was, he must be alright. Just a victim of the same errors. I called on him. When you really mean it, the devil will come. I gave him a sacrifice. I tossed the Bible into the fire. I got hold of my wife's cat, that snarling, fuzzy beast, and I cut its throat on the living room rug and called Satan. He stank. The place stank, and he was there. A foul sort of thing. He was crawly and slimy and toady. He belched rot, and his voice would give you the willies. But I don't go for appearances. I knew he had to have the stuff to stand up to all those dirty do-gooders and gospel pounders. I told him I wanted to get out of my jam. I wanted my wife back under my control, and my daughter where I wanted her, and my partner in hell. Satan agreed. He could do the first two things, and while the judgment of my partner would be up to that other one, maybe he'd get his soul in the end. Anyway, he'd die. And what did he want of me? My soul, of course. I trusted him for that. What good would it do him? I believe in reincarnation, anyway. I struck a hard bargain. I said first I had to have a chance to be reborn again and live a whole new life from the start. Then he could have my soul afterwards. Because if he got my whole soul, but only gave me the last half of my life as I wanted it, that wasn't fair, was it? No. I drove a hard bargain. He had to give me an entire life from start to finish. He whined and he threatened and he bellowed, but he agreed. On my deathbed, he said he'd reappear and give me the word on the whole new life I was going to get to live. There were certain rules he had to go by in that sort of thing. Okay, I said, I trust you. You and me. We think alike. We think right. An iron hand in a velvet glove. That's the rule. He stank. That no good bum. He gave me his word. And I say he cheated. But he didn't think so. My partner died that same night. His furnace exploded in his house. The place was a seething mass of flames. He tried to get down the stairs, got splashed with flaming oil, was scorched from head to foot, ran out in the flames and died in agony. Served him right. The firm's ledgers were in his house for his auditors, and they burned up too, putting me entirely in the clear. He died in scandal too, because my wife was caught in his house. She had a room upstairs. She jumped from the window. The newspapers snapped a picture in a torn nightgown on the lawn coming away from the man's house. That queered any divorce case for her. She came home and she had to keep her mouth shut. There'd never be a chance for her to get custody of our runaway daughter or any divorce. I've never let her forget the scandal, even though she claims there was nothing between them. He was just being hospitable. Ha! I showed her. She's not allowed out the house now, and I beat her black and blue whenever I think of it. She hasn't got a legal leg to stand on. Not after those newspaper photos and stories. My daughter is still in the padded cell I arranged for her. If she's going to fake insanity, I'll make it so hot for her she'll learn the error of her ways. She's been there 10 years now, and the kid is stubborn, but the doc and his strong arms have been well paid. They use the leather mitts on her, and the rubber sheets, and the shocks. She'll stop her act, or else. Unfortunately, I won't live to see it. I'm dying now, and I've arranged in my will to see that a cure and treatment continues. I got this cancer of the throat from inhaling some kind of poisonous gases or something years ago. I think it was that evening with that stinking cheat. His bad smell burned my throat. It did. I told you he'd cheat. And he's back. Just now. He's been back, and he gave me the full dope on our deal. I'm to get a full life from birth to maturity and eventually death. Only he's cheated. He can't give me a life that hasn't been lived yet. He can't reincarnate me in a future year. No. He hasn't any control over future lives. He has only control over lives that have been lived, he said. The cheat. Why couldn't he have said that when we first made the deal? And it seems to be a rule in this kind of transaction that he can't take life over in the same sex. Something about positive and negative polarity in souls. If you live twice, then you get to see life from first one sex and then the other. Makes the soul rounded, he says. The cheat. And it's also got to be someone who's a blood relation, he tells me. The stinking, slimy, no good crock. I'm dying, and in a few minutes more I'm going to be dead. And then I'll open my eyes again, a newborn baby, and start living through all the long, long years of another person's life. I've got to experience everything, every darn, horrible, painful, frustrated, mean minute of it. I'm going to be reborn as my own daughter. It's going to be hell.